Three Lambs by Liam O'Flaherty. Little Michael rose before dawn. He tried to make as little noise as possible. He ate 2 slices of bread and butter and drank a cup of milk, although he hated cold milk with bread and butter in the morning. But on an occasion like this, what did it matter what a boy ate? He was going out to watch the black sheep having a lamb. His father had mentioned the night before that the black sheep was sure to lamb that morning, and of course there was a prize, 3 pancakes, for the first one who saw the lamb. He lifted the latch gently and stole out. It was best not to let his brother John know he was going. He would be sure to want to come too. As he ran down the lane, his sleeves, brushing against the evergreen bushes, were wetted by the dew, and the tip of his cap was just visible above the hedge, bobbing up and down as he ran. He was in too great a hurry to open the gate and tore a little hole in the breast of his blue jersey, climbing over it. But he didn't mind that. He would get another one for his 13th birthday. He turned to the left from the main road, up a lane that led to the field where his father, the magistrate, kept his prize sheep. It was only a quarter of a mile, that lane, but he thought that it would never end, and he kept tripping among the stones that strewed the road. It was so awkward to run on the stones wearing shoes, and it was too early in the year yet to be allowed to go barefooted. He envied little Jimmy, the son of the farm labourer, who was allowed to go barefooted all the year round, even in the depths of winter, and who always had such wonderful cuts on his big toes, the envy of all the little boys in the village school. He climbed over the fence leading into the fields and, clapping his hands together, said, "Oh, you devil!" a swear word he had learned from little Jimmy, and of which he was very proud. He took off his shoes and stockings and hid them in a hole in the fence. Then he ran jumping, his bare heels looking like round brown spots as he tossed them up behind him. The grass was wet and the ground was hard, but he persuaded himself that it was great fun. Going through a gap into the next field, he saw a rabbit nibbling grass. He halted suddenly, his heart beating loudly. Pity he hadn't a dog. The rabbit stopped eating. He cocked up his ears. He stood on his tail with his neck craned up and his 4 feet hanging limp. Then he came down again. He thrust his ears forward. Then he lay flat with his ears buried in his back and lay still. With a great yell, little Michael darted forward, imitating a dog barking, and the rabbit scurried away in short, sharp leaps. Only his white tail was visible in the grey light. Little Michael went into the next field, but the sheep were nowhere to be seen. He stood on a hillock and called out, "Chawin! Chawin!" 3 times. Then he heard "maa" in the next field and ran on. The sheep were in the last 2 fields, 2 oblong little fields, running in a hollow between 2 crags, surrounded by high, thick fences, the walls of an old fort. In the nearest of the 2 fields, he found 10 of the sheep standing side by side, looking at him, with their 15 lambs in front of them, also looking at him curiously. He counted them out loud, and then he saw that the black sheep was not there. He panted with excitement. Perhaps she already had a lamb in the next field. He hurried to the gap leading into the next field, walking stealthily, avoiding the spots where the grass was high so as to make less noise. It was bad to disturb a sheep that was lambing. He peered through a hole in the fence and could see nothing. Then he crawled to the gap and peered around the corner. The black sheep was just inside, standing with her 4 feet on a little mound. Her belly was swollen out until it ended on each side in a sharp point, and her legs appeared to be incapable of supporting her body. She turned her head sharply and listened. Little Michael held his breath, afraid to make a noise. It was of vital importance not to disturb the sheep. Straining back to lie down, he burst a button on his trousers, and he knew his braces were undone. He said, "Oh, you devil," again, and decided to ask his mother to let him wear a belt instead of a braces, same as little Jimmy wore. Then he crawled farther back from the gap and, taking off his braces altogether, made it into a belt. It hurt his hips, but it felt far better and manly. Then he came back again to the gap and looked. The black sheep was still in the same place. She was scratching the earth with her forefeet and going around in a circle, as if she wanted to lie down but was afraid to lie down. Sometimes she ground her teeth and made an awful noise, baring her jaws and turning her head around sideways. Little Michael felt a pain in his heart and pity for her, and he wondered why the other sheep didn't come to keep her company. Then he wondered whether his mother had felt the same pain when she had Ethna the autumn before. She must have, because the doctor was there. Suddenly, the black sheep went on her knees. She stayed a few seconds on her knees, and then she moaned and sank to the ground and stretched herself out with her neck on the little hillock and her hind quarters falling down the little slope. Little Michael forgot about the pain now. His heart thumped with excitement. He forgot to breathe, looking intently. "Ah," he said. The sheep stretched again and struggled to her feet and circled around once, stamping and grinding her teeth. Little Michael moved up to her slowly. She looked at him anxiously, but she was too sick to move away. He broke the bladder, and he saw 2 little feet sticking out. He seized them carefully and pulled. The sheep moaned again and pressed with all her might. The lamb dropped on the grass. Little Michael sighed with delight and began to rub its body with his fingernails furiously. The sheep turned around and smelt it, making a funny happy noise in its throat. The lamb, its white body covered with yellow slime, began to move, and presently it tried to stand up, but it fell again. And little Michael kept rubbing it, sticking his fingers into its ears and nostrils to clear them. He was so intent on this work that he did not notice the sheep had moved away again, and it was only when the lamb was able to stand up and he wanted to give it suck that he noticed the sheep was lying again, giving birth to another lamb. "Oh, you devil!" gasped little Michael. 6 pancakes! The second lamb was white like the first, but with a black spot on its right ear. Little Michael rubbed it vigorously, pausing now and again to help the first lamb to its feet as it tried to stagger about. The sheep circled around, making low noises in her throat, putting her nostrils to each lamb in turn, stopping nowhere, as giddy as a young schoolgirl, while the hard pellets of earth that stuck to her belly jingled like beads when she moved. Little Michael then took the first lamb and tried to put it to suck, but it refused to take the teat, stupidly sticking its mouth into the wool. Then he put his finger in its mouth and gradually got the teat in with the other hand. Then he pressed the teat, and the hot milk squirted into the lamb's mouth. The lamb shook its tail, shrugged its body, made a little dive with its head, and began to suck. Little Michael was just going to give the second lamb suck when the sheep moaned and moved away again. He said, "Chowin, chowin, poor chowin," and put the lamb to her head, but she turned away moaning and grinding her teeth and stamping. "Oh, you devil," said little Michael. "She is going to have another lamb." The sheep lay down again with her foreleg stretched out in front of her, and straining her neck backwards, gave birth to a third lamb, a black lamb. Then she rose smartly to her feet, her two sides hollow now. She shrugged herself violently, and without noticing the lambs began to eat grass fiercely, just pausing now and again to say, "Ma." Little Michael, in an ecstasy of delight, rubbed the black lamb until it was able to stand. Then he put all the lambs to suck, the sheep eating around her in a circle without changing her feet, smelling a lamb now and again. "Oh, you devil," little Michael kept saying, thinking he would be quite famous now and talked about for a whole week. It was not every day that a sheep had 3 lambs. He brought them to a sheltered spot under the fence. He wiped the birth slime from his hands with some grass. He opened his penknife and cut the dirty wool from the sheep's udder, lest the lambs might swallow some and die. Then he gave a final look at them, said, "Chowing, chowing," tenderly, and turned to go. He was already at the gap when he stopped with a start. He raced back to the lambs and examined each of them. 3 she-lambs, he gasped. "Oh, you devil, that never happened before. Maybe father will give me half a crown." And as he raced homeward, he barked like a dog in his delight.